if you don't go camping too often, you know, you can just grab your phone out when you need to at night and chuck the flashlight up on. You can roughly see what you're doing. Otherwise, head torches, man, they're awesome. You chuck them on your head. You got 2 hands free to do whatever you need to do. But if you like camping, eventually you're going to get yourself a dual battery system so that you can plug in your fridge and have lights and stuff. Because it's so handy being able to just flick the switch and hey, you can actually see what you're doing. And you guys can probably actually see me now. Don't know if that's a good thing, but anyway. Welcome along to another episode of Project Cyan. So obviously in this video we're going to be talking about dual battery systems and the 12 volt setup in this car. But I might wait till tomorrow morning so that I can actually show you guys a lot easier what the go is. So I'm going to go sit by the fire and yeah, catch you guys tomorrow morning. Oh man, can't see nothing now. Good morning. It's that awesome time of year where it's not too hot during the day and it's not too cold at night. It's just awesome out here. Love being out here at this time of year. Anyway, let's get into this 12 volt setup stuff. So when I got this car, one of the first things that we did was actually remove all the aftermarket wiring.
You've got to be joking.
I've just told Joel to go to town and rip out all this wiring because who knows what it's for. Oh, that's the fuel tank wire! Except for the trailer plug and the reverse camera, because I kind of needed both of those. But besides that, everything else went. There was an electronic brake controller, there was some kind of system to power the caravan, so all that just got ripped out. Just so that we had a clean slate and got rid of all the dodgy wiring, because man, we found some interesting stuff, hey? So it was good just to get rid of it all. Like every other dual battery system, you're going to need power from the alternator, right? So I've run a 150 amp hour cable from here to a 70 amp hour circuit breaker, and that just ducks underneath to the back of the car. And I'll go into why I've used such a thick cable a little bit later on. And like every other dual battery system, you're going to need to mount your battery somewhere. So I decided to put mine here under the tray, just in case you don't know where we are. The back of the car's that way. And they're mounted just on top of the spare tyre, so just had enough room to stick them in there. It was a little bit of a challenge. And this battery tray, just we made up ourselves. Took us about a day. There was a few challenges involved in doing that. Spare tyre, shock absorber mount. Everything. What else is there? I can't even remember. Oh, the egg. Did I say egg sauce?
Maybe.
Yeah, anyway, there's a few things. It's got to be a bit of a tight fit, but we'll make it work. But we've actually just started from making the base tray. And from there we just kind of fiddled around with it until we figured out where it could sit. And then we just made up the rest of the supports. But well worth it. It still hasn't rattled apart, which is pretty handy. It's done the Gibb River Road and survived that. So pretty stoked with how that's come up. But you may be wondering, why 2 batteries? So why would you need so many amp hours or so many batteries? Well, we're up in the Kimberley at the moment, and during the day you pretty much get in the low 30s, and at night sometimes it can be around the 20s or a bit lower and the 10s. Last night we probably had a bit of a colder night, so we didn't use up as much power as we do other nights. So I'll just show you the meter on the inside. So last night we used 42 amp hours ever since we pulled up. We pulled up at about 5 o'clock. So since 5 o'clock yesterday, we've used 40 amp hours. So if you had an 80 amp hour battery, that's virtually all your battery that you can use used up, because you can only use half. So yeah, you use a fair bit of power when you're running, because at the moment we're running a fridge here. And also we've got another angle there running as a freezer. So it chews up a fair bit of juice. I'll just show you how much the freezer's used in a 24-hour period. So this is hooked up to the freezer and it's been plugged in for almost 24 hours now. You can see that we've used 39.7 amp hours. So that's just the freezer alone over a 24-hour period. So as I mentioned when I was up in the Kimberley there, you can only take 50% of your battery power. So that means if you've got a 100 amp hour battery, you've virtually got 50 usable amp hours of battery. So in the case of lithium batteries, you can actually take more. You can actually take 80% of the battery's power out of it. But they're so crazy expensive at the moment that it's just not feasible for most people, including me. I'm not that rich. So AGM batteries, you can take 50% out of them. And generally, you know what 50% is by the voltage. So the kind of voltage that they work off is usually 12.5 volts is 50% of your battery. So anything below that, you're really draining your battery and it's not going to last as long, because with batteries, the lower you cycle them, they're not going to last as long. So if you do 20%, if that's the cycle, you're going to be able to get a lot more life out of your battery by just taking a little bit of power before you recharge it back up again. So that's all about batteries for you, just in case you didn't know that. A lot of people do know that. Let me introduce you to the switchboard. So this is where the switchboard's tucked away. So the switchboard itself is made out of very high density fiberboard. It's actually stuff that you can pick up, well, I pick up at my local electrical supply store, and it's pretty cool because it's actually fireproof, but it's also just a really nice thickness to work with as well, so that's why I use it. Plus it's already got a surface on it, so it looks kind of alright without painting it too. So there's the DC-DC charger, there's the inverter, there's a 300 watt inverter. Now you may be wondering why such a small inverter. Well, I was going to upgrade it when I was doing this whole setup, but I really just looked at everything that I need to run off 240 volt, and I was like, you know what, 300 watts pretty much powers everything that I need to power, because I virtually charge camera batteries, run a few small appliances like a vacuum sealer, and a few other bits and bobs like my laptop. So 300 watts is more than capable of running what I need to. But also what I've done is I've actually run power from here to here, and then from here it's been run to other parts of the car. So I'll just quickly show you where else it's been run. So one of the places where the 240 volt power goes to is here. This is just below my whole kitchen setup. It's a pretty cool little spot because you can have stuff charging there and still get to your pots and pans. So it just works really well. At the moment, just got a camera battery charging there. I've also got 2 USBs here and just a Siggy as well, so pretty handy little spot. And I'll show you the other one inside the car. So we're in the car now, and if you lift up the back seats, you'll find this power board. So this power board runs to the inverter in the back of the car, the switchboard, and it's got enough length on it so you can actually have it in the front seat. And it's pretty handy because you can just have stuff charging while you're on the road and just keep an eye on it, like see how your electric toothbrush is going, or your shaver, or your drone batteries, how they're going. So for instance, on the Kimberley trip, we pretty much had this back here the whole time, and we would just have stuff charging when on the road, because it's really the best time because the alternator's powering it instead of running the batteries down. So there's a couple of other things on this switch panel. Up here we have the water pump switch, because what happens when the water tank gets low, if air gets into the water pump, it'll just stay on continuously until it burns itself out pretty much, so got to be able to turn it off somehow. Also just the angle socket, which powers the angle, which sits right here. Also these fuse boxes, if you haven't seen them before, these are just fantastic, definitely worth their money. So in my setup, I've only got 2 cables hooking up to the batteries underneath the tray. And that's just positive, negative, that's it. So I just wanted to keep it super neat. So the main power from the battery comes up through this cable here and hooks up there. So when the DC to DC charger is charging the battery, it virtually just runs in through this cable here and then runs down that cable there to the battery. And then same with the earth, all the earths are hooked up here. So it's just awesome, these, because if you want to add another circuit, all you got to do is chuck in a fuse, run your cable, and then just hook up your earth to the common bus here of all the earths, and then that just takes care of all your earths as well. So it just makes for a really neat setup. So definitely recommend those if you're doing your own wiring. So I'm going to show you guys the back of this switch panel, but I am by no means an auto electrician, so I've tried to keep everything as neat as I can, but you know, you can only do your best, can't you? Whew, everything's a bit dusty there. This is the back of the switchboard, otherwise known as Spaghetti Junction, so I won't bore you guys with too many details, but this is the main twin core cable that goes from the auxiliary batteries. So the main power feed goes to there and goes to the front of the fuse block, which I already showed you guys, and then the earth cable runs over here. So this shunt here allows me to measure how much voltage and how many amps are going in and out through the battery monitor, which I'll show you guys a bit later. So virtually anything that's powered from the dual batteries, from the auxiliary batteries, you can measure and monitor, which is just awesome. And then also over here, this super thick cable here, that's the one that comes in from the front of the car, from the alternator, and that goes to this terminal here before going into the DC to DC charger, which then obviously powers up the auxiliary batteries. But also I mentioned that there's a reason why I went for such a thick cable, and that's because I've got the air compressor mounted just above this switch panel. So thanks to that, I can run the air compressor from this cable, which hooks up directly to the alternator, which is going to work a lot better than running it off the auxiliary batteries, which just can't keep up with the amount of amps that the air compressor takes, because I think the air compressor draws about 40 amp hours, so there's no way that the DC to DC charger, which is a 25 amp DC to DC charger, is going to keep up with what the air compressor is drawing. So that's the whole reason for that. Besides that, yeah, there's no point explaining anything else here, so moving along. This little panel here was in the Canopy when I got the car. I imagine it was for lights, but it's just turned out to be the perfect place to put my switches and also my battery monitor. And there's one of these in both sides of the car, so I've actually got the same setup with the switches on the other side. So here we've got the internal light switch for the LED strip. This is the external for the LED strip on the wings of the Canopy. And then also we've got amber lights here. Now the idea with the amber lights was because, well, apparently they're meant to not attract bugs as much, but I haven't found that, so I'm not sure if I bought the wrong amber lights or what the go is there. But either way, it's actually a really pleasant colour if you're just sitting around the fire and you just need a little bit of light, not such a in-your-face kind of light as the other whites are. But these white lights are fantastic, hey. You get them for like 15 bucks for 5 meters. You just solder them up and they give you plenty of light, and it's just really nice spread out light because it's not all coming from one source as well. Then over here, we've got the battery monitor. So at the moment, the starter battery for the car is sitting at 12.55. The auxiliary batteries are sitting at 12.53. We're currently using 0.7 of an amp. You can see that changes when you flick on the lights to 3.1. And since the car was fully charged yesterday, we've used 26 amp hours, almost 27, and the batteries are 92% of charge. So it's really handy if you like knowing what your batteries are doing. Another cool thing is you can actually use the app to see all of that stuff as well, see the state of charge and the voltages and all the rest of it. So if you're into knowing what your batteries are up to, super handy. If you're not, oh well. In the BT50 there's 3 cigarette points. There's one there, one just there, and one just behind this center console. They are all constantly powered though, which kind of sucks because I always want to know that I can start the car to get out of camp the next day. So what I ended up doing is running a cable in, and we ended up changing them all over so that they're all constantly powered, but they run off the rear batteries. So you know, you can run a fridge in here now, you can run anything you like. You're still going to be able to get out of camp in the morning. The car's always going to start. Well, you hope it's always going to start, don't you? So while we were doing the cigarette plugs, rewiring them, I also decided just to whack in an Anderson plug here. I just love Anderson plugs. I mean, really I do. I'll show you where they are. There's one there. There's 2 there. There's one there. There's also one on the other side of the canopy right there. So that's my camp shower. And there's one there. And I've got many more in the form of Anderson extension cords. So the reason I love Anderson plugs so much is because, for one, they're a very high amp connector. They can take 50 amps, which is massive, and I almost never use them for that kind of voltage. But anyway, they're also a very firm connection. Like, it's not very likely that they're gonna come apart by accident. So if you're running a fridge, for instance, Anderson plug all the way. It's not going to come out like a ciggy. Nothing worse than all your food going off because your fridge decided to unplug itself. And also, thanks to these Anderson extension cords, you can run power anywhere. For instance, last night I ran this one into my swag right here. This is an Anderson to ciggy plug connector. Then you just plug in your ciggy to USB. You can charge your phone during the night. Also, sometimes I like to charge my headlamp in my swag as well overnight. So it's awesome like that. Also, you can virtually get power from anywhere if you got an Anderson to alligator. You know, you can hook up to anybody's batteries, steal your mates. And it's just handy for stupid situations where somebody's battery kind of dies or something like that happens. Like when I was camping last Christmas, one of my mate's cars, his battery wasn't doing too well, his auxiliary. So what I just ended up doing, just ran an Anderson extension cord out to his car. We hooked up his fridge to my batteries, seeing as I got two. I could spare a little bit of power. Man, the power bill was massive for him though, but anyway. But it's just handy for stuff like that. Also, like you saw, my camp shower over there, all I do is just run one of the Anderson extension cords out to the shower, hook that up, and away you go. And also, another thing obviously, solar panels. That's what they're most commonly used for. So as far as the solar panel goes, on the roof I've got an Anderson plug that goes into the solar, and also underneath the car, which I showed you guys a little bit earlier quickly, there's one there as well. So they're both hooked up directly to the DC to DC charger. Seeing as the DC to DC charger is solar ready, you can just plug the solar panel straight in without any other regulator, and then that'll charge the batteries as well. And it's also an MPPT charger, which is one of the better ones to go for over the PWM, so that's another bonus as well. These ticks, what's wrong with you? Can't you just like find some animal? Don't you just hate ticks? They're so annoying. So speaking of other people hooking up to my car with Anderson plugs because their batteries aren't doing too well, my mate Juggy's just rocked up and his battery's not doing too good, so Anderson plug out there. Straight into the fridge. Anderson plugs, love them. Juggy loves them too, don't you, Juggy? I do. The DC to DC chargers, there's pretty much two styles of dual battery systems out there at the moment. There's the isolator, and then there's the DC to DC charger. Now if you've got a modern vehicle with a smart alternator, you have to have a DC to DC charger, no two ways about it. But if you have got an older car, you can have an isolator. But I gotta say, if you do have an isolator, seriously think about getting a DC to DC charger. Because in my last car, the Bravo, I had an isolator for years. And yeah, sure it works, but the second I changed over to DC, I really noticed that the voltage, it would hold its voltage a lot longer as opposed to the old isolator dual battery system. So definitely worth thinking about. You're really going to get the most out of your battery that you can get, and it's just going to last a lot longer as well because it's just really getting maintained properly like it should. So the Projecta unit, why did I go for it? Pretty much the price, $300. Can't really complain about that, especially when that's half the price of some of the other brands out there. And I've had this unit for probably 3 years, I'd probably say now, and it's been flawless. It's a 25 amp one, and it's also solar ready like I mentioned, so you just plug your solar straight in. It takes care of all the regulation and everything. So far I can't fault it. The only thing that I have noticed with it is it does get a little bit warm sometimes when I've been up north in the hotter climates, but hasn't burnt out yet, so it's all good. With the solar panels hooked up, we're putting in about 8 amps at the moment. The sun's kind of playing hide and seek with the clouds today, so it's going to be a little bit up and down, but that's alright, especially when you got 2 batteries. But that's pretty much the 12-watt setup on Project Cyan, so I hope you guys got a few kind of pointers or ideas, different ways of doing things. Hopefully it'll help you out if you're doing your 12-volt setup. So some people would say this is a little bit overkill, but considering I did most of it myself, it worked out a lot cheaper than getting someone to do it anyway. That being said, a lot of my, well pretty much all my 4-wheel drive friends did give me a hand at some point in putting this all together. So massive thanks guys, help's always appreciated. And yeah, that's pretty much me done, so I'm going to go and relax. I suck at doing that while camping, my friends keep telling me, so let's try and get better. We'll stop recording videos for a start maybe, eh? See you guys in the next one.